Welcome back for another episode of Control Your Brain, the podcast with me, Dr. Trish Leigh. I'm so glad you're here today because we are going to talk about ADHD and how anyone can improve their attention. So in this podcast episode, we're first going to talk about ADHD and what it is and how it's felt in people. Then secondarily, we're going to talk about organic ADHD versus ADHD that falls out of brain dysregulation that is acquired over your lifetime. Organic means you were born with it. Acquired means it is happening in your brain because of the way that you're using your brain. And of course, we're going to think about the neurological patterns at the core of each of those types of ADHD. Then, number 3 is your brain hack strategy for the day, how anyone can improve their ability to attend, focus, use working memory, and rock out their best life with those improved qualities. Okay, so number 1, ADHD. What is it? So if you struggle with ADHD, I don't need to tell you because you know that it's an inherent difficulty in being able to attend and focus. And in the QEEG brain map assessment that I provide, I'm able to see the neurological brain patterns at the core of ADHD. And this is what I know. Sometimes people have the true organic ADHD pattern or the true acquired ADHD pattern. Other times, people have difficulty with focus, impulsivity, working memory, which means holding information in your memory so that you can use it, with concentration, distraction, but in fact, they don't have the ADHD brain pattern. They're using a different brain pattern that makes it difficult to focus. And I am going to talk about this in the second section in just a few minutes. But what ADHD feels like is difficulty attending, being prone to distraction, difficulty following through on one task, difficulty with executive function skills, which means smaller steps to achieving a larger project. It may fall out as distractibility, impulsivity, hyperactivity, and we're going to talk about why when we talk about the brain pattern. But that is the physiological and the mental experience of ADHD. Now, you can have that experience without having the ADHD brain pattern. That's going to be one big takeaway from this podcast episode today. If you want to know if you have the ADHD brain pattern, you can find out for sure on a QEEG brain map, which is the brain evaluation that I offer for people who struggle with attention, hyperactivity, impulsivity, brain fog, distractibility, all of those things. You can see for sure what your brain looks like in terms of how it's using electrical energy and if you have the ADHD brain pattern. So let's go to number 2. What are these 2 different types of ADHD and what might be the other brain patterns that make it difficult to attend if you don't have the ADHD brain pattern? Okay, number 1, organic ADHD. Now, if you have struggled with attention and hyperactivity, learning challenges, if it's been a struggle for you, basically from the very beginning, it is likely that your brain is using the organic ADHD brain pattern. This brain pattern is one of too much slow processing speed in the brain and not enough perfectly fast processing speed. The slow processing speed is called theta. Basically, it's the speed that's supposed to make your brain feel groggy at night to shift you into sleep. But for people with ADHD, that fall asleep mode is cranking. It's being used too much with too much magnitude, too much slow processing speed in the day. And when your brain's kind of falling asleep all day long, it's difficult to focus. It's difficult to attend. Your brain is looking for something to stimulate it, to make it feel more awake so that you can focus. That's too much theta. Too little beta is the perfect processing speed for focus. So perfect focus speed is at 12 to 15 hertz. 12 to 15 cycles per second. Theta is at 4 to 7 hertz, 4 to 7 cycles per second, much slower. So the theta to beta ratio is very wide. The gap is wide for people with ADHD, and that is organic. And it means that their brain's using too much theta and not enough beta. And what that does is it makes your brain run slower in processing speed, and it falls out in that cognitive and physiological way in your mind and your body. Difficult to stay on task, the need to stimulate. Organic ADHD is a neurodevelopmental disorder. Neurodevelopmental means it is a brain pattern that you had when you were born, and your brain is not developing in a typical way. So that's where we talk about neurodiversity. And I'm all for neurodiversity unless it is keeping you from your full potential. So the people I work with ADHD, they're frustrated by their inability to be able to perform at high levels. For kiddos, they get stuck in this loop of, it's a negative feedback loop of not being able to perform well in the classroom, constantly being in trouble with their teachers for those self-stimulation behaviors or for the lack of focus, and they're caught in a downward spiral. That type of neurodiversity is not helping anybody. If you embrace ADHD, go for it. But if it's holding you back, I want you to know there's a way to regulate that brain pattern, and we're going to talk about it in the third section today. But that organic ADHD brain pattern can be optimized. It can be brought closer towards that perfect processing speed of calm focus between 10 and 15 hertz. So the way that we do that, and I will tell you more in a minute, is to decrease the use of theta, increase the use of beta, and close that theta to beta ratio gap. Theta to beta ratio is known as TBR. That TBR gap can be closed and you feel and perform better. Now back to the idea of neurodevelopmental. The way that happens in development, I think this is pretty cool, that's why I'm going to share it, is that think about a little baby who's just born. Little babies sleep all the time. They basically sleep 23 and a half out of 24 hours. They're only awake to eat. And then as that baby grows and develops into infancy and toddlerhood, they stay awake more hours in the day. That's because the use of these slow processing speeds, including theta, is decreasing as a child develops. So theta is very high when they're little, and then theta is coming down, infancy, toddlerhood, childhood. Theta coming down, beta coming up. But if you have ADHD, what happened for you during development is theta never came down and beta never came up. Hence, into older childhood, adolescence, and into adulthood, your theta to beta ratio gap is too big. It never closed by itself in development. That's what makes ADHD a neurodevelopmental disorder. You can look that up on any website. You can look it up at the National Institute of Health. It's considered a neurodevelopmental disorder. So for kiddos who are having learning challenges when they're very young, but then either they have therapy, they do neurofeedback brain training, something happens to help them close that gap, that is a neurodevelopmental delay. But their brain is able to catch up and they don't move into neurodevelopmental disorder. We're able to catch that delay, close the gap, and have them be able to use the ideal, optimal, neurotypical, neurooptimal brain pattern. So that's the goal if you struggle with ADHD. That's how ADHD plays out developmentally in terms of how your brain should have developed when you were younger. So now if you're older and you're stuck with this very big theta to beta ratio, what that means is if you close the gap, you will feel and perform better. Okay, so that's organic ADHD. Let's talk about what I'm calling acquired ADHD. Acquired ADHD is we use our brain every single day. You might not think intentionally or cognizantly about how you use your brain. I try to, and I'm not even perfect at it by any means, but I'm aware and intentional. So if you use your brain in a way that you're increasing your theta and you're decreasing your beta, and especially if you're stressed out, you're increasing your high beta. High beta is at 30 hertz, very fast speed, and it makes you feel ramped up on the inside. It makes you feel stressed and anxious. Now, if you put yourself in a position that you're using this mode every day, overwhelmed, fatigued, tired, ramped up, wired, exhausted, low beta, if you use that brain pattern every single day, you're going to kind of keep hardwiring it in through use. We know that Hebb's law states that neurons that fire together wire together. So if you're wiring in this lack of focus and this kind of spread too thin, exhausted, wired and tired, burnt out pattern, and if you keep using it, those neurons are going to fire together, and before you know it, you are going to have an acquired ADHD pattern. I see it in people's brains all the time. And that's why when I work with people, I do an extensive history to find out what happened to you in the past, how you were using your brain, or what your brain had to deal with in the past, and how you use your brain in the present. How you use your brain is very important. So we figure that out. And if you are struggling with an acquired ADHD pattern, when you stop using your brain in that way, it can start to rewire itself into the healthy, optimal brain pattern by decreasing the use of theta, by increasing the use of beta, and decreasing the use of high beta stress mode. So acquired ADHD is created or made and perpetuated by lifestyle choices and life situations. So it is different than organic ADHD. A person with organic ADHD, I could have them change their lifestyle in every single way, and it's not going to regulate their brain. Their brain was born that way. Their brain developed that way. In acquired ADHD, it's how you're using your brain. You want to know the number one way that you're creating an acquired ADHD dysfunctional pattern in your brain? You guessed it, screen time. Screen time wires and tires your brain. We know that. So when we give ourselves an electronic washout and we don't use screens, inherently you're going to close that theta to beta ratio gap because you're not wiring and tiring your brain by excessive screen use. Now, this episode isn't going to be about screen use, but I want you to know if you feel like you've developed quote unquote adult ADHD, which is not a thing, it's acquired ADHD because of the way you're using your brain, not neurodevelopmental adult ADHD. That's not a thing. It is acquired. It's the way you're using your brain. Now, a caveat is you definitely could have struggled with learning challenges when you were young and had the organic ADHD pattern, but it was never diagnosed or you never found it. The way to know that is to think back when you were 5, 6, 7, did you struggle with learning challenges in those early years? If the answer is yes, then you likely have an organic ADHD pattern if you continue to struggle now. If the struggle didn't start until adolescence, adulthood, moving through adulthood, it's an acquired episodic dysregulation pattern that will be easier to regulate if and only if you can change the way that you're using your brain. But I can see the difference between those two patterns in your brain, and especially when I take your history into account. So know that. Okay, so one other thing I wanted to share is that now those are the two patterns: organic ADHD, acquired ADHD. Let's talk about why might you feel like you have ADHD, but then we do your brain map and there's no ADHD pattern there. Number one reason, anxiety. If you struggle with anxiety, it's a very fast running brain. And a very fast running brain makes it difficult to focus. It makes you distractible. It makes executive function difficult. It can make you feel ADHD, but it's not that your brain's running too slow. It's that your brain is running entirely too fast. I like to use the analogy of the bullet trains that go over 100 miles per hour. If you're on a bullet train and you're going 100 miles per hour, can you see the trees as you pass by? No, you cannot focus on them. And it's because your brain's running much too fast. Now, we know from science ADHD and anxiety are comorbid. They exist more times together than not. And the reason being is I told you that slower running ADHD brain is going to crave stimulation. There's two ways that most people give the brain stimulation. Number one is hyperactivity, physical stimulation. Those are the fidgety kids or adults. Those are the people who move their body a lot, physical stimulation. The second way is mental stimulation by really ramping up how you spin the wheels, ramping it up to 30 hertz, which is high beta, which is anxiety. Anxiety is an internalized self-stimulation mechanism of the brain to offset the slowing of the TBR ratio that's too high. Hopefully you're with me on that. So if you have anxiety, it might feel like you have difficulty focusing, but the solution is to decrease anxiety, not to regulate an ADHD pattern. And if you're on medication, you would be given a stimulant medication if you had the TBR ratio. If you had true ADHD, the stimulant medication would work for you. If you have anxiety and high beta and you're given a medication, many times it makes you feel worse because it's ramping up that already fast energy in your brain. And remember, you can have the organic ADHD pattern and the anxiety pattern. But if you have the anxiety pattern too, it's going to ramp your brain up too much and you are not going to feel well. It might help you focus, but it increases your anxiety as well. Okay, moving on to number three. Number three is your brain hack strategy for today. So what can you do to find out which one of these brain patterns that you have, and especially what can you do to help your own cause and to improve your own attention? So solutions exist on different levels. I call it the pyramid of possibilities. The pyramid of possibilities to improve your attention exist on three levels: the lowest level, the medium level, and the highest level. The lowest level is to structure your lifestyle so you're not increasing theta and you're not increasing high beta. And that holds true for people with organic ADHD. So I said to you earlier that, we could change your lifestyle all we want and it won't get rid of the ADHD pattern. That is true. But if you structure your lifestyle to stay out of theta and high beta, it's a very strong compensatory strategy to help you perform and feel your best with the ADHD pattern. It will improve your focus and attention. And it works like this. Anytime you push too hard, theta's going up. Anytime you get more stressed out, high beta's going up. It's going to make you feel worse and it's going to decrease your ability to focus. So structuring your lifestyle so that you have frequent breaks. So as theta is going up, you bring it back down. As high beta is going up, you bring it back down. That will be a very successful compensatory strategy. So you can structure your lifestyle so you take frequent breaks, you do the difficult things first so that your brain can do easier things later on in the day, and you basically stave off the wired and tiredness. You stay out of the screen as much as possible, recognizing that screens resonate at 60 hertz and it's going to make the ADHD brain pattern worse. You make sure you moderate screen time and you offset screen time. One way you can do that is with blue light filtering glasses. My actual glasses have blue light filters built right into them. It helps in front of the screen. It will filter all of that electrical energy and keep your brain in the best mode possible, even though it's in the ADHD mode. Another way that you can do that is to meditate. Meditation's completely free. And if you are interested, I offer a program that's called Control Your Brain. I teach you all of these aspects of neurological regulation, and I teach you all of the lifestyle changes that you can make and new strategies that you can implement to keep your brain in the best mode possible. I'm going to put the link below this podcast episode. And of course, it's called Control Your Brain because it's the essence of what you can do to control your brain. When we move up to level 2, now we talk about high-tech brain training. And it's in Control Your Brain where I teach you about this affordable but effective brain training headband that you can use at home, and you never have to work with me. We never have to meet. Not that I wouldn't love to meet you, but you can do this very affordably at home and effectively. There's a lot of research behind this headband, as long as you know how to use it, that you can in fact start closing the gap in the theta to beta ratio, especially in the frontal lobe, that most people are impacted in the frontal lobe and the temporal lobes. This piece of tech is the highest level technology that's out there, and it's basically accessible and affordable for most people, and it's so easy to use. So get into Control Your Brain so that you can learn how to use this tech. This is a medium level. So at the lowest level, you can use the suggestions I provided you here for free, or you can get into Control Your Brain and you can start learning all of these things for a very low price point. Now, when we're talking about the brain training headband, you do have to purchase the technology. Right now at this recording, it's about $250. That might change depending upon when you watch the video. So we have entry level that's free or low investment, Control Your Brain. Number 2 is you also get the headband. It's still pretty much affordable for most people, and it gives you a high-tech tool to use every single day at home. I use mine all the time to keep my focus sharp and to keep my anxiety down. Actually, I just had an amazing session that I'm going to have to put on my Instagram. So go over to my Instagram at Dr. Trish Leigh and check it out because I'm going to put my graph there. Yes, you heard me, graph. So every time you use this brain training tech, it produces a graph of your brain performance. It allows you to see how your brain is performing, and you can track improvements by yourself over time. So get into Control Your Brain, figure out how to use this tech, and start training your brain immediately. It would be amazing. I also offer a lower price point course called Brain Training 101. It doesn't have all the lifestyle strategies that Control Your Brain does, but it's a really good start. And at this recording, it's $49. Very, very affordable. So I'll make sure the links to both workshops are below. Control Your Brain, Brain Training 101. Train your brain at home. Okay, now moving up to the peak, to the apex, it's getting smaller as we move up the pyramid of possibilities because it has a larger investment, but it saves you time and energy. At the lowest level of the pyramid of possibilities, there's a larger time investment because you have to learn what you need to do to regulate your brain. Then when you get into the medium, there's more of a financial investment, but less time, less energy that you have to put into it. When you get up to the top, not all people will want to invest in this top level service, but it's there for the taking if you're the type of person who's ready to invest in improving your attention and healing the ADHD brain pattern on the inside, going to the core, to the root ADHD brain pattern and changing it, improving it. That's why I want you to know I think neurodiversity is the most amazing thing. I would never want all people to be the same. I would never want all brains to be the same. But if your brain pattern is keeping you from achieving your goals, I want to be able to help you. Up in the top tier, we get to work together personally. I offer something that's called a QEEG brain map. I'm able to see which brain pattern you're using. I share that with you in a 1-hour Zoom. So the way that it works is you need the brain training headband as the tech. You also need a sensor. So when you sign up for the brain map, you get a sensor, you plug it into the headband, and I give you access to top tier technology and software. It's different software than the headband comes with. You get professional software and you can take your full brain map at home. I know it's mind-blowing because my husband still runs our brick and mortar office. It's called Lee Brain and Spine, and I don't go there anymore. He's running the show there. But we've had this technology in our private practice for a really long time. I've been using this online technology, I think, for about 7 years now with thousands of people. And taking your brain map at home has never been easier, and it's comprehensive and it's so effective. We're able to see every area of your brain and how it's performing, and especially the frontal and the temporal lobes where most ADHD resides. I'm able to show you in so many different parameters that theta to beta ratio. It's really easy to see if your theta to beta ratio is too high. If you have the organic pattern, if you have the acquired pattern, if you have some other pattern, sometimes it's anxiety, sometimes it's head injury if you've had a head injury, sometimes it's emotional trauma if you have PTSD. I'm able to share with you what brain pattern you have and how far away it is from optimal. The levels of dysfunction, you can see that with your own eyes. So when you invest in the brain map, you fill out that comprehensive history and how you're using your brain today. And then we get together, we go through your map and we connect all the dots between all of that. If you have a kiddo who's in school who has learning challenges, I can look through all of his paperwork and connect dots there that most professionals cannot see, and likely you cannot see. I'm working with lots of children, but one kiddo's popping into mind where he was struggling so bad last year in school. And if you're listening, friend, hi friend, it's an old friend from back in the day, his kiddo that I'm talking about. This kiddo was struggling, and there was talk of putting him in a non-inclusive classroom. So, kind of leveling up the level of education in terms of isolation. And that's not something his parents wanted. Started doing neurofeedback. The theta to beta ratio is very high, but the gap is closing. And we've actually only closed it a little up until now. And all the reports from school are coming back stellar. Things are improving, even though the gap's only closed a little. If we can get it to close all the way, that's amazing. But getting it to close a little is the beginning of the flywheel of the positive feedback loop of using Hebb's law to our advantage. Neurons that fire together wire together. Let's get them firing together and wiring together for improved focus, attention, decreased anxiety, rocking out your best authentic life. But again, there's a larger investment because we get to spend personal time together. If this feels good to you, please go over to drtrishleigh.com. Go over to Work with Dr. Trish Leigh. There's a tab that says QEEG Brain Map First Step. That's the first step for us working together. It's how you can see what your brain is doing. If you're not ready for that, get into Control Your Brain, or at least Brain Training 101, and let's start moving your brain in the right direction. All right, I hope you find this information helpful, because it's my mission to help you use the best brain pattern that you can to rock out your best life. Okay, until next time, control your brain or it'll control you.